Today we're going to be reading from and commenting from this book, 365 Days of a Richer Life. 365 Days of Richer Living. And it's a book by Ernest Holmes. And Ernest Holmes was the founder of the Science of Mind Church, New Thought Church. This entry is from today, August 27th, and it starts out with a reference to the Upanishad, which is a Hindu wisdom. Here's the reading from the Upanishad. It says, "The infinite is the source of joy. There is no joy in the finite. Only in the infinite is there joy. Ask to know the infinite." The Upanishads. Well, I'll comment on that. This is a wonderful distinction between the world and heaven. If we're thinking with heavenly thoughts, if we're thinking with our true self, the self within the mind of Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, Krishna nature, then of course we're in a state of bliss. Whereas the earthly opportunities for pleasure, of course, are many, but then there are always, of course, in the earthly pleasures, all of the negativity, and it never comes close in any measure to the infinite or to the heavenly, as measured by the Buddha or the Christ or the Tao, the Krishna, any of those experiences. So what this Upanishad is saying really is to develop a consciousness of the infinite, recognizing our place in the infinite, recognizing that we are one with the infinite intelligence, infinite creator, infinite source, knowing our place, knowing that we are one indivisibly, without any separation, gives us a sense of what I would call our own spirituality, true self, true nature, rather than the human nature. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. That's the truth. And the human experiences, I don't mean to in any way invalidate. There are some wonderful experiences and a purpose behind all of the human experiences. It is, as you would say, an earth school, a place where we can learn our lessons in immortality and in our spiritual identity. So there's nothing wrong with the earth, whether you would consider it an illusion, a dream, or absolute reality in its own sense, an expression of the ultimate as far as creative power. God created the earth and in 7 days and declared it to be good. So there's a choice there that we can make. However, the true nature of man is spiritual, while having an earthly experience in the body with other bodies in a seemingly separate existence from the spiritual. So having drawn those distinctions, it says the infinite is the source of joy. There's no joy in the finite. Only in the infinite is there joy. Ask to know the infinite. That's a direct reference, I think, to prayer. Prayer, meditation, living one's life consistent with being a spiritual being. Not the false self, not the self that clothes itself in a variety of costumes, a variety of achievements, a variety of names. All of those, of course, are false identifications that are impermanent, whereas our eternal identity, the true self, is one of love and light, one of godliness, one of heavenliness, and that's the truth. Let's go on with the reading in this book. This entry for August 27th says, "Omnipresence surrounds me, omniscience inspires me, and omnipotence is mine to direct. All things bless me, and all people benefit me. I look out upon my universe and love it, for he who made it indwells it. He that made me acts through me with ease, for I let God be in me all that he desires for me. God's vision of me as a perfect expression of life is my vision of myself. There is nothing to cause me to feel regret or sorrow, for I recognize but one mind God. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that good is my only experience today. Well, that's a lovely introductory paragraph. The title of this entry is I Enjoy Life Today. Again, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And to say I enjoy life today makes a definitive statement. It's an affirmation, one that we can live by and as. And God lives through us in the affirmation itself. I enjoy life today because the infinite is the source of my joy. There's no joy simply in the finite. Whereas the finite might be my nearest reality, there is within me, deep within my mind, the infinite. And only the infinite provides the joy that I seek. The infinite reference being, of course, to God. I ask only to know the infinite. In my prayers and my meditations, I ask only to know that God is in me and works through me and has created me in its likeness and image, as love, as light, as consciousness, as thought. That's what we all are. And I can enjoy life today because there's a master plan. Not my plan, not what I've decided, but I've decided for. So the curriculum, so to speak, is already established. It's God's curriculum. And if I live in alignment with that curriculum, and I act and I speak in accordance with that curriculum, what I'll discover is that I do enjoy life. I find that life is an expression of the heaven that I'll bring to the state of consciousness I have here on the earthly plane. Well, let's read a little bit further. It is as easy to be joyous as it is to be sad. It is as easy to think of God as it is to think of trouble. I devote my consciousness to joyous ideas, and I experience happiness in my world. When others point out to me their troubles, I immediately correct my thought and proclaim order and right action. I never hesitate to declare the truth. He who hesitates to speak truth is lost in untruth. I speak positively, yet lovingly. I stand firmly for what I know is truth, and I am not afraid to say so. Never again will I indulge in false sympathy or a belief that evil has power. God alone rules my life with his joyous activity of ideas. Well, this is a reference, of course, to the power of the mind and the power of thought through ideas. Ideas of spirituality, ideas of kindness and good, ideas of positivity rather than negativity. And my consciousness is an expression of joy. It's a choice that's easier to make than to think of trouble. Trouble may be an ideation that I'm in a habitual state of mind to think. But I want to change my habits. I want to change the idea that trouble is at home within my mind, because it isn't at home. It's a foreign element, strictly a false idea. It is not who I am. Trouble and fear are false ideas and not at home within my mind. My mind is home to love, to joy, to happiness, to affirmations, to the expression of the infinite itself. Why? Because the infinite itself created my mind, created who and what I am. And so it is. Well, the reading goes on, the last paragraph. I am divinely enthusiastic. about the possibilities of the present. All of God is for me, and things are turning my way. Life offers me all that I can take. Beauty seeks my eyes, and love seeks my heart. I give all glory and all honor to God, and there is nothing but gladness in my soul. My feet are planted to holy ground, and the whole universe invites me to enjoy the game of life. Right thinking is my greatest asset. Right living is my true vocation. I love to live the life which is God. Well, this is our purpose. This is our function, to be the love and the light, to be the expression of God in the world, to exemplify it, to be a minister, to be a mystic, to be a monk, to be a teacher, to be an example. And that is in our everyday roles as parents, siblings, spouses, citizens. Our everyday function is to express right thinking, which is my greatest asset, and to indulge in right living and right speech. I love to live the life of God. I don't have to go around evangelizing. I don't think that's necessary, but for some people, it is a very natural thing to do, and of course, that's wonderful. But what we're talking about here is an interior in our minds. The interior is filled with the love and the light of God. And then the outward expression of it in our everyday lives, in those roles that I mentioned, which includes all of us, would be one of godliness. We would not express it in a grandiose or egoic way. We would express it in a way that is kind and loving to ourselves and to others. Always looking to make things straight, looking to rebuild bridges, take down fences between us and others that may exist. There's an opportunity here to be bridge builders. And I think that's an important aspect of enjoying the life that we live. Certainly we have grievances and resentments. And we have to look at those head on. Sometimes some action has to be taken, but always in furtherance of resolution between myself and the person I may have a grievance or resentment towards. The idea is that this too shall pass, and that I am willing to allow the light and the love and the wisdom and the knowledge of God to clarify in my mind where I have been perceiving wrongly, where I've been perceiving possibly with an ego mind rather than a spiritual mind, looking to be right rather than to be holy and to be loving, and to be willing to turn over the unholy thoughts, the mistaken thoughts, maybe the mistaken actions, some of the entrenchment in my own mind that I feel I'm right, but I'm not happy, and recognize I can turn that over to my higher power, which I call God. This is the nature, this is the way, this is how we promote, if you will, a world that works for everyone, with no one and nothing left out. And that would include us, of course. We can't have a world that works for everyone if we're experiencing being self-righteous, if we're experiencing being opinionated, and somebody else's opinion is wrong. I love the expression live and let live. And I also love the expression let go and let God. These are wonderful slogans to live by. And once we live by these slogans, we know the truth. And as it is said, the truth shall set us free. And love, which is the truth, casts out all fear, which is probably what is behind some of the entrenched ideas of the ego. Fear of being separate from others, fear of not being accepted by others or myself, fear of being wrong and being ridiculed, All of these things are egoic ideas that we can transcend with the help of our higher power. God is within our minds, and we are godlings, expressions of a God of the Most High. And because we are so perfect in the creation and in the expression, we want to remember that we're seeing and must see our brothers and sisters the same way. They too are expressions of the Most High. They too are loving. They too are perfect. Maybe not in the moment of their expression, maybe not in the moment of their opinion, but we know that we've all made mistakes, the impermanent ideas that are mistaken, and we let those go, and we join in Christ consciousness, something that we all share in common. And in the joining in Christ consciousness, there is the bridge building, there is the oneness, the unity that is an absolute expression of heaven itself, and we enjoy life today. That's how it works. That's how I try and practice my life. Every day, there are opportunities for me to look at where am I condemning myself or others? How can I take those condemnatory thoughts and let them go and let God take them? How can I be positive? What negativity has seemingly taken over my mind? And how can I take the negativity and turn it around? What are the positive aspects of any situation that I've been viewing with negativity? I'll give you an example. Here we are in this pandemic in 2020, and being in a lockdown, so to speak, restricted to my home, I don't get out at all, really, somewhat, but not much. And there's an opportunity to take on a woe is me attitude. Or we can look at it from a different point of view, the highest point of view of positivity. How do we look at it? I attempt to use the phone as much as I can. I attempt to use the Zoom calls. There are all these possibilities that are available now with the electronic age that we live in, the internet. There are connections that can be made, classes that can be taken, workshops that can be taken, all kinds of expressions that give us the connection that we so, as humans and as spiritual beings, need and want. We want to join. We don't want to isolate. We're not hermits. We're not living in a convent or a monk, although there's nothing wrong with isolation if that's somebody's choice. But by and large, even in the convents and in the monasteries, there is a brethren there, a fellowship, an interaction between those that live there in their prayer time, in their work time. And this is something that we would miss during this pandemic if we didn't reach out. So I maintain through prayer, meditation, all of the electronic devices. Of course, my wife is here. We interact. So we're making, I think, lemonade out of lemons. It's a cliche, but it's true. You have to deal with the cards that you're dealt at any given moment. And then, while you're dealing with the cards that you're dealt, you find that you can enjoy life today. Do I have to do this forever? I know that this will pass. This too shall pass. And in the passing, I know that I've also grown spiritually, mentally. I've grown in health and well-being. I've focused on my exercise and my diet. These are all things that I have additional time to do that I may not have had time or was pressed for time to do before the pandemic. So there is a silver lining behind the clouds, and that's always the case. There's always the heavenly aspect to an earthly condition. This gets us back to the Upanishad quote, "The infinite is the source of joy." and I have that infinite joy and the source of joy within me wherever I am. It goes on to say there is no joy in the finite. Well, living in the house in quarantine situation with a fear of pandemic, that would be the finite. That would be a condition that this too shall pass. And if I take the precautions that are necessary, if I understand what's necessary to make this day the first day of the rest of my life, one day at a time, this 24 hours can be the best that I can make it with a co-creative aspect with my higher power, which I call God. So this reading is so wonderful in reminding us each day is a link in the chain of the lives that we lead. And in each link is our co-creation. We ask God to show us through guidance the way, and we then take that guidance and we allow our days to unfold consistent with a symbolic or representative nature of heaven itself. We know that this is the Garden of Eden on the planet Earth while we're here. It has to be, because God is behind everything. God wants everything that we experience to be a lesson that we learn in returning our minds to the heavenly state that we really never leave, because that's an eternal state of mind. So even if I find myself and my body in conditions that are less than what I might assess as optimal, I can say my mind rises above this occasion, and I see from a viewing point of Christ consciousness. And then there are infinite possibilities, always, even in what would be less than optimal situations. There are infinite possibilities. And I love to explore those with God, because God knows exactly what our talents are, what our interests are. God knows exactly who and what we are all about as a true self, and then presents the opportunities that are infinite at the level that we would understand them and use them most efficiently if we sit in prayer and ask and listen. This is the nature of a spiritual life. This is the nature of how we get along and how we get along forever. Not simply in the finite, but in the infinite, the immortal, the eternal. That's the long run. It's a marathon. It's an ultra marathon. This is no short race. Contrary to public opinion, it is not a short race at all. It is an ultra marathon. And we want to live it in a way that benefits ourselves and others jointly. Because it's only when others are benefited that we feel true benefit. It's only when we know the truth that we can share it and extend it to others. And the truth is love. The truth is forgiveness and reconciliation. The truth is joy. And this takes a willingness on our part. Not really much more than that, because we aren't the source of the work that gets done within us. God is the source of the work that gets done. Jesus said, God the Father doeth the work. But we want to be open channels. We want to be in such a state of mind that God's work can get through, and we're good stewards. We're good messengers, and we can practice these principles with unfettered minds. That's the important thing, being able to be good messengers. And you'll find that that means that you're enjoying your life as a good messenger. Don't hold it up in comparison to other people's worldly possessions, worldly positions, acquisitions, the people they know, the money they've accumulated. That has absolutely nothing to do with our role and our function as good stewards of God's message. Now, having the so-called riches and influence and all that can be put to good use. It can be used in ways that God would certainly guide us to use them, and we would benefit as well as others. That's true as well. but as a goal in and of itself, to the exclusion of our spiritual identity or ignoring our spiritual identity, is not the way to a joyful existence. So many people have given in to greed and to lust and to avarice. All of the so-called deadly sins, the seven deadly sins, gluttony, and so forth. Well, I don't preach sinfulness, but I do preach an opportunity to shift what I seek, both in the world and beyond this world, in accordance with God's will, not my own. Because I know that left unbridled, and if I don't surrender my will, what I'll probably opt for is not going to make me or other people in my family or in the world happy. I have to seek what God seeks, because only God has infinite intelligence and is omniscient and omnipotent and knows all of the past, knows all of the future, and knows everything that needs to be done on my behalf and through me. So, I ask that I be a good messenger, and any of my negative emotions, any of my negative thoughts, I willingly let go and I place it on the altar in my mind to the God of my understanding. And that God, I ask humbly to take it up and to remove it from my consciousness so it no longer impedes me or keeps me from being the minister, the teacher, the parent, the sibling, the spouse that I could be, the most loving, the most kind. These are all of the nature and the way and the light and the life. And what Jesus said is absolutely true. What he did, we can do, and even more. And what he meant by that is that the possibility exists within us to be fully the Christ consciousness and to express Christ with healing and well-being, with love and light. This is a world that needs it so much, and we're here as expressions of God. Each one of us is a tool, but we share the toolbox. We're all in the same toolbox. We may look like separate tools, but the truth is that we're all functioning on the same level, and that is the God level. Well, I'm so grateful and thankful we had a chance to read from this book, 365 Days of Richer Living. And this is a daily inspiration by Ernest Holmes. I highly recommend it. And I also highly recommend that you look into affirmations, New Thought, A Course in Miracles, Buddhism, all the variety and the wisdom paths that exist in the world. You deserve to know your complete wisdom that's involved in the creation of you and the expression of you. Be all that you can be, just like they used to say in the commercials. Know all that you can know and love all that you can love.